So if you've been watching the news or scrolling property Twitter, or indeed watching many videos on YouTube, you'll have seen people saying that London's crashed. House prices are down by 20% or the bubble's finally popped. But has it actually? Is this the case? And in this video I'm going to look at the data, not the drama, and answer one simple question. Have house prices really dropped in the last few years? Or is it just less of a boom than people expected? We look at the official Land Registry, the UK House Price Index numbers, some sold price data like Rightmove, and how London compares to the rest of the UK. And then at the end I'll give you my honest review as a landlord on whether this is a buying opportunity or still too expensive. Before we jump into graphs, just a quick word on the data. There are lots of different house price indices out there. The UK House Price Index from the Land Registry, this is based on actual completed sales, so it's the one I treat as the benchmark. You've also got lender indices like Halifax and Nationwide, and portals like Rightmove and Zoopla using asking prices and sold prices. They tell a similar story over time, but the numbers are slightly different. In this video I'm mainly using the UK HPI and Office of National Statistics figures for London averages, plus Rightmove sold price stats for that peak versus now view. So let's see what actually happened. The first question is that compared to a few years ago, has London actually fallen? If we look at the UK House Price Index in September 2020, the average London price was around £496,000. By late 2022, that had climbed to around £542,000. So that's a solid rise. Fast forward to September 2025 and the official average is about 556k. So if you just compare 2020 to now, the headline prices are still going up, not down. And that's quite an important issue. Anyone saying London has completely crashed since COVID is ignoring the fact that the average price is still tens of thousands higher than it was in 2020. Where the house prices have dropped headlines come from is when you compare today to the peak of the boom. Rightmove sold price data for London shows an average sold price peak around 721,000 in 2022, and over the last 12 months the average sits at around £665,000. That's roughly an 8% drop from the peak. So if someone says London is going down from its 2022 peak, that is true. But if they say London is cheaper than pre-COVID, then on average that's not true. What we've really seen is a big run up into 2021 and 2022, followed by a cool off and a pullback, not a 30 to 40% crash. Is London still actually falling right now? Official UK HPI stats for September 2025 say London's average price is £556,000. And over the last 12 months that's about 1.8%, so just under a 2% fall. And if we compare that to the rest of the UK wide prices are still up about 2.6% year on year. The northeast is up around 7.9%, so London is definitely underperforming the rest of the country. It's either flat or slightly negative, which is why you see articles saying London has fallen while other regions are still rising. But again, we're talking about low single digit percentages, not a brutal crash. If we break London down by property type, the picture is similar. A gentle slide, not a collapse. In the UK HPI data for September 2025 versus 2024, London shows that detached houses from about 1.17 million to about 1.13 million pounds. This is the fall that has been seen, and that's around 3.4%. With regards to flats and maisonettes, from about £454,000 to £441,000. That's a less than 3% drop. Terrace and semis are also slightly down, so every property type has eased back a bit over the last year, but again it's by a few percent. It's not 20 or 30%. The biggest squeeze seems to be on bigger, more expensive stock, which makes sense with the higher mortgage rates and the new taxes hitting the top end. Now this is where it can get confusing. The official UK HPI says London is down by about 1.8% year on year. Rightmove sold prices say London is about 8% below the 2022 peak. Both are true, they're just measuring different things. The UK HPI looks at average over time. Rightmove is comparing today with the absolute high point. So when you hear London's down 8%, that's from the peak using one dataset. London is down 2%, that's year on year using the official index. This is why you can't just read a headline and assume that the market has totally collapsed. You have to ask, compared to when, and using which data and based on what? Are they just opinions that people have been getting from going to property events and having general chats? Or have they really looked at the numbers? There's another aspect to this, and that's the inflation. Between 2020 and 2025, we've had some of the highest inflation in decades. One analysis even suggested every £1 saved in 2020 is only worth about 89p in real terms by 2025. So there's roughly 11% erosion. Other people on the internet have said there's been about 30% erosion. If that's the case, then they need to present the evidence. So even though London's nominal price is up from about £496,000 to £556,000 since 2020, once you factor in inflation, a lot of that gain disappears. In other words, in cash terms, London is higher than 2020, but in real terms after inflation, you could argue that prices are flat or slightly down. That's actually how it feels on the ground. Deals are harder to stack, wages haven't kept up, and mortgage rates have eaten into affordability. So has London crashed? The answer is no. Has it deflated a bit in real terms? This is what generally seems to have happened. So have London house prices really dropped in the last few years? To summarise, compared to 2020, no, they are still up in nominal terms. Compared to 2022, which was the peak, yes, some datasets showed there's been around a 5 to 8% drop. Year on year, official data says London is down by about 2%, and after inflation, you could argue that London is flat or slightly down in real terms. So the truth is much more boring than the headlines. As an investor, what matters to me is London is no longer rocketing ahead of the rest of the UK. Other regions are seeing much stronger nominal growth, but if you can find a good deal in a good area with the numbers that work today, you're not buying at some crazy peak like we saw in 2022. Let me know in the comments, do you think London is good value now? Or are you looking at other regions for better yields and growth? If you found this useful, please like and subscribe for a more data-driven, analytical but real-world property content from a landlord who is actually doing this stuff. Thanks again, see you next time.